Okay, guys, so we've missed a few days of reading, so I'm very excited to see what happens next. So, who remembers what happens last time? I've got to check because I can't even remember. They were... Oh, do you remember they were big? And then they found a spell to make them normal size again. But then Moonface stayed because he wanted to be a bit bigger. Do you remember, guys? Right. And then, what happened, guys? They lost the hole. They went down the wrong hole. Do you remember?
Yeah.
They came down the wrong hole. And there was a door there. Remember, they knocked on the door. And then... there was a Mr. Changeabout. So let's see what happens next. Everyone stared at Mr. Changeabout. At least, as he was the only person in the room, they thought that was who he must be. He got up and came towards them. He was fat, comfortable-looking person with a broad smile on his face. Layla? "Dear me, what a lot of visitors," he said. "Do sit down." There was nowhere to sit except the floor. This was made of stone and looked rather cold, so nobody sat down. Something happened to Mr. Changeabout when nobody obeyed him. He grew tall and thin, his broad smile disappeared, and a frown came all over his face. He looked a most unpleasant person, and he shouted. "Sit down!" he roared, and everyone sat down in a hurry. Mr. Changeabout looked at the saucepan man, who had sat down with a tremendous clatter. "Have you a nice little kettle that will boil enough water for 2 cups of tea?" he asked. The saucepan man didn't hear. So Joe shouted in his ear, and he got up and undid a little kettle from the many that hung about him. "Just the thing," he said, handing it to Mr. Changeabout. "Try it and see." Mr. Changeabout changed again and became a happy-looking little creature with dancing eyes and a sweet smile. He took the kettle. Guys, he changes all the time. "Thank you," he said. "So kind of you. Just what I wanted. How much is it?" "Nothing at all," said Saucepan Man. "Just a present to you." "Well, allow me to hand round some chocolate to you all in return for such a nice present," said Mr. Changeabout, and fetched an enormous box of chocolates from a cupboard. Everyone was pleased. That's Mr. Changeabout when he changed into an angry person. Okay. Dave looked carefully into the box when his turn came. His hand stretched out for the very biggest chocolate of all. Mr. Changeabout at once changed again and flew into a rage. He became thin and mean-looking, his nose shot out long, and his eyes grew small. "Bad boy, greedy boy," he shouted. "You shan't have any of my chocolates now, horrid, greedy children." And at once all the chocolates changed to little hard stones. Bessie had hers in her mouth, and she spat it out at once. The others looked most disgusted. The old saucepan man gave a yell of dismay. "Oh, I swallowed mine, and now I suppose I've got a stone inside of me. Oh, you nasty Mr. Changeabout, I'll show you what I think of your chocolates." And to everyone's surprise, Saucepan rushed at Mr. Changeabout, knocked his box of chocolates all over the room, and began to pummel him hard. Pummel means smack. Biff, smack, biff, smack. Goodness, how the old saucepan man fought Mr. Changeabout, and Mr. Changeabout fought back. But what was the good of that? Saucepan was so hung about with pots and pans of all kinds that nobody could possibly hit him anywhere without hurting their hands. Clang, clatter, clash! The kettles and saucepans made an enormous noise, and everyone began to laugh, for really Saucepan looked too funny for words, dancing about on the floor, hitting and slapping at Mr. Changeabout. Mr. Changeabout suddenly got very big and fierce-looking, but old Saucepan didn't seem to mind at all. He just went on hitting him, and shouted, "The bigger you are, the more there is for me to hit." So then Mr. Changeabout got very small indeed, as small as a mouse, and ran squealing across the floor in fright. Quick as lightning, Saucepan picked him up, popped him into a kettle, and put the lid on. "Oh, Saucepan, whatever will you do next?" said Joe, wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. "I've never seen such a funny fight in my life. Be careful Mr. Changeabout doesn't squeeze out of the spout." "I'll stuff it with paper," said Saucepan, tearing some from the box of chocolates. "Now he's safe. Well, what do we do next? We'd better get out of here, said Joe, standing up. He turned towards the doorway. But what was this? There was no doorway. And no door. Only a wall of rock that ran all around the underground room now. Goodness, how do we get out? Said Joe, puzzled. This is a very magic kind of place. There's no window, of course, because we are underground, said Dave. What in the wide world are we going to do? What about the chimney? Asked Franny, running to the fire. It looks pretty big. We could put the fire out and climb up, perhaps. Well, that looks about our only chance of getting out of here, said Joe. He looked round for some water to put out the fire. He saw a tap jutting out from the wall and went to it. He put a bucket underneath and turned on the tap. The water was bright green and soon filled the bucket. Joe threw it on the fire. It made a terrific sizzling noise and went out at once, puffing clouds of green smoke into the room. Joe stepped onto the dead fire and looked up the chimney. There's an iron ladder going right up, he called in excitement. Whew, bless me. Okay. Come on, we shall get dirty, but we can't help that. Hurry before anything else strange happens. Up the ladder he went. It was hot from the heat up the fire, but grew colder the higher he went. What an enormously long chimney, called back Joe. Is everyone coming? Yes, yes, called 6 voices below him. Joe climbed steadily upwards. At last the ladder came to an end. Joe clambered over the top of it and found himself in a most peculiar place. What you doing? Go wash your hands, please. This looks like some kind of cellar, he said to the others as they scrambled up beside him. Where you going? No, come back.
I'm changing a box.
No, come back. Quick. Come sit nicely, please, cooks. Okay. Look at all those sacks piled up. What do you suppose is on them? Is in them? Pull, cooks. Pull. Good girl. Let's look, said Dave, who was always curious about everything. He undid a sack. And goodness gracious me! Out poured a great stream of bright golden pieces of money. Everyone looked at it in astonishment. Somebody very rich must live here, said Joe at last. I never in my life saw so much gold. I can't believe that all the sacks are full of it. It's fine, boy. He undid another sack, and out poured gold again, just as everyone was running their fingers through it, marveling at the gleam and shine of so much gold. There came a sound of quick footsteps. Uh-oh. A door above them opened, and a gleam of sunlight shot onto a flight of stone steps leading up to the cellar to the door. A tall man in a pointed hat looked down. Golly, it's an enchanter, whispered Moonface in fright. We must still be in the land of spells. Oh dear! Robbers! Thieves! Burglars! Shouted the enchanter in a loud voice. Servants, come here! Capture these robbers! They are after my gold! See, they have undone 2 sacks already. We don't want your gold, said Dave. We only just want to know what was in all these sacks. I don't believe you, cried the enchanter, as about a dozen small imps came running past him down the steps into the cellar. An imp is like a troll. Capture them, servants, and tie them up. The little imps pulled everyone up the cellar steps into a big sunlit room. Its ceiling was so high that nobody could see it. Now tie them up, commanded the enchanter. Moonface suddenly snatched a kettle from saucepan and snapped the string that tied it to him. He went toward the enchanter fiercely. Wait, he cried, much to the astonishment of all the others. Wait before you do this foolish thing. I am an enchanter too, and in this kettle I have Mr. Changeabout. Yes, he is a prisoner there, and let me tell you this, that if you dare to tie me up, I'll put you in the kettle too, with Mr. Changeabout. From the kettle came a small squealing voice. Set me free, enchanter, set me free. Oh, do set me free. The enchanter turned quite pale. He knew it was Mr. Changeabout's voice. This is most peculiar, he said. How did you capture Mr. Changeabout? He is a very powerful person and a great friend of mine. Oh, I'm not going to tell you what magic I use, said Moonface boldly. Now, are you going to let us go, or shall I put you into this kettle too? I'll let you go, said the enchanter, and he waved them all towards the door at the end of the room. You may leave at once. Everyone rushed to the door gladly. They all ran through it, expecting to come out into the sunshine. But guys, do you know what happened?
What?
You don't want to know, Leif.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not telling.
The enchanter had played a trick. They found themselves going up many hundreds of stairs, up and up and up. And when they came to the top, there was nothing but a round room with a small window. A bench stood at one end and a table at the other. The enchanter's voice floated up to them. Ha, ha, ha! I've gotten you nicely. Now I'm going to get my friend, Wizard Willy, and he'll soon tell me how to deal with robbers like you. We are in a trap, groaned Joe. Moonface, you are very clever and very brave, but honestly, we are worse off than ever. I simply don't see a way out of this at all. Guys, what do you think's going to happen? They are prisoners now. Can you imagine like a tall tower that they're trapped inside?
Like Rapunzel.
Like Rapunzel, exactly. So, tomorrow we're going to find out if they escaped or not, and what's going to happen next.
Just skip this.
See you tomorrow.